Recording is now in progress. Welcome everyone again to today's Best Books presentation of picture books. I am your co-host Betsy Bird, and of course you have been hearing from Mr. Brian Wilson. We both work at Evanston Public Library here in beautiful Evanston, Illinois, which is right above Chicago, in case you want to know where that is. Today, we will be presenting some of the books that we think are particularly good that were published in 2021 in America, I should say. I've got a couple that were published overseas before that. So we're very happy that you're able to join us. I will be putting, is there a paper version of your list at Evanston Public Library? That's a good question. Brian could probably print you out one if you wanted him to. That's okay. We definitely have print versions of our annual 101 Great Books for Kids list. I'm actually putting the link to that in the chat. Should you wish to have a copy of that on hand, it is a very fine list. Some of the books we'll be talking about today are on that list, and some of the books on that list are not being discussed. And then we'll be talking about ones that are our own personal pet favorites that did not make that list in the end, but that we think are very noteworthy for one reason or another. So we're going to play the Can Betsy Pin the Correct Person game, and I'm going to attempt to pin Brian, and he's going to start us off. So Brian, let me see if I can actually pin you. Wonderful. And I'm going to de-pinify myself. Brian, take it away.
Thank you so much. And let's see here. All right. Can everyone can see me? Everything? All right. Okay, cool. Welcome. Thank you so much. This has been an annual tradition for quite a while. And I want to acknowledge a couple of people who are here who helped start this. Quite a while ago, there was a group called Anne's Book Club, and it was a group for early educators. They met seasonally at the library, and they invited me. Rick Kinnebrew, who's on this call, invited me to give a presentation on favorite picture books. And it kind of started off at our small storytime room, and then it went to our community meeting room. One time on her blog, Betsy Bird on a Fuse #8 production, before she started working at Evanston, gave the presentation a shout out, which I thought was really nice. So when she joined the staff in 2015, 2016, around there, I invited her to become part of the presentation. And it's just been really fun. And the last 2 years, we've had to do it virtually. And I like the virtual option even though I love seeing everybody in person, I love the virtual option because we have people from Seattle here. We have people from all around the country. New York City, I have a friend from New York City here, few friends from New York City. I'm just all around the country. So it's just really fun. I want to thank a few people, Martha, Liz, and Kim for promoting it on the newsletter, and also Steve Johnson, who promoted it on social media. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to get to my favorite picture books, some of my favorite picture books of the year. This is an amazing year for picture books. It took me a long time to pick the ones. Betsy has a lot of my favorites too. And it's just a really great year. For this year's presentation, I decided to become like a DJ. It's gonna be like a mixtape where books are kind of gonna flow into one another, thematically reminding me of each other. All right, I am going to share my screen, and let's see if I can do this with no problem. All right. Can everyone can see the screen? There should be actually. Please look away for a second. Oh, la, 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 la. I went to the file you're seeing, you're getting spoilers. Brian's choices. So we just went back in time. We went backwards. So I'm starting off with My First Day, which I think is a great book to start off with because it's about first. This is my first book that I'll be talking about. This book is amazing. Betsy mentioned books that were published in other parts of the world. This was published in Southeast Asia a few years ago. And Christopher Myers, who's a great United States author and illustrator, he has a new imprint called Make Me a World. And this was a book that he and his team brought over. My First Day has thrilling, as you can tell from the cover, it's from Vietnam. It has thrilling cinematic images in it that are just amazing. And it's about a little boy who has to travel down the Mekong Delta River in Vietnam. And it's his first time making a journey alone. And it's just, and there's a mystery, like, where is he going? What is he doing? The book itself has just thrilling double page spreads throughout. They're very cinematic. I always tell children, especially older children who love movies, that picture books can be very cinematic. If you love movies, you can still love picture books. I want to mention that most of the picture books I'm talking about, ages 3 and up are fine. I will tell you books that can even go really younger. And I do have some picture books that are for older readers. This is like ages 3 and up. The book does get a little scary. It's very expressionistic. As he becomes more frightened, his environment going down the river becomes scarier. You see snakes, you see all kinds of things, but then it becomes brighter as he faces his fears. He even tames like some water buffalo in one part, and you find out his final destination, which I will not spoil here. But it's just an amazing, thrilling book. I instantly fell in love with it. My next book, speaking of first, is Mel Fell by Corey A. Tabor. I wrote about this for Colin Caldecott, which is Hornbook's great site. Jules Danielson is here, and she is one of the people who helps put that together, and she has a great blog called 7 Impossible Things. Mel Fell is about a kingfisher, a little tiny kingfisher, who has decided today that she is going to jump off her branch and fly, except she keeps falling. And what's interesting about this book, is I have it here, is you have to hold it in a unique way. I mean, unique, not, some picture books do this, but most picture books, you hold like this, but this one you hold like that. As Mel falls, you have to flip the pages up. So Mel is falling. All the other animals are trying to catch Mel as she's falling and help her out. And there's a really cool moment in the book where she reaches her final destination, and you have to turn the book around, and Mel flies back up the page. It's just a book that I instantly fell for, no pun intended, and it just really I just love it. And it's a book that's really hilarious. It's funny. The animals along the way are saying great things, like really hilarious things. But there's also something kind of moving about the book. It's beautiful. The illustrations are actually really beautiful in the book, and like just these kind of like the way the nature is portrayed. There's something kind of beautiful and funny about the book, and it's about perseverance and a little character finding out that she has the strength to do big things. Just a wonderful book. Speaking of birds, and going to Mr. Watson's Chickens, which is just an incredible book. And I'll move my slide. There we go. Multitasking is my friend. Mr. Watson's Chickens is a book about a couple, Mr. Nelson and his partner, Mr. Watson and Mr. Nelson, who is his partner. And they start off with 3 chickens, and then they end up with 456 chickens. And basically chaos ensues. And this book, Andreas Sarumi is just a master of chaotic animal comedy. The books Accident and Crab Cake are both really just great books at showing this. And Crab Cake has a great ecological message in it. But throughout the book, you are just filled with these amazing images of the chickens in the house and causing chaos. There are all these little stories in it. There are all these like little jokes going on in the background. There are lifeguard chickens. There are punk chickens. There are chickens designed to honor great LGBTQIAP+ illustrators of the past, like Marie Sendak and Tommy DePaula. There's a Stregonota chicken in here. There's a Max from the Where the Wild Things Are chicken in here. And it's just thrilling. These illustrations are just absolutely thrilling. Meanwhile, Jarrett, who used to work at the Evanston Public Library, he's an Evanston-based author who's had a great year this year, has written a text that can be read aloud with recurring phrases, a hilarious song that one of the chickens sings, has really great narrative beats to it. So it's just a perfect combination of a writer and illustrator. Jarrett comes into the library a lot, and for several years we've talked about picture books, funny picture books. And he came to me once with a manuscript. I mean, he showed me like Mr. Watson Chickens, you know, who do you think would be the perfect person to illustrate this? And we both were Andrea. So, and it worked out, and we were so thrilled that it did, because it's just such a funny and chaotic book. Speaking of Andrea and Jarrett and Eugenia Mello, Andrea did an Elephant and Piggy like reading book. If you know that series, Mo Willems had the Elephant and Piggy books, and now there's the special sequel where guest authors and illustrators come in and create books in the Elephant and Piggy style in a way. Andrea did one, I'm On It, which is about an escalating war between a goat and a frog. Has lots of prepositions in it, and they're trying to outbuild each other as they go up, and it's absolutely hilarious. Jarrett wrote Jazz for Lunch, illustrated by the great Eugenia Mello. And this is a really fun book that mixes jazz with cuisine. A boy goes to visit his aunt. They love to cook, they love jazz. And in this book, again, great beats to it, great wordplay. Jarrett mixes in the names of jazz greats with names of food and dishes, and kind of throws them together in a hilarious way. What's great about this book too is are the end pages. Are the end where he talks about all the different jazz musicians mentioned, and puts them almost like in a menu, like almost like words like they're on a menu, but like just really, really fun. And he wrote this book for his daughter, who he was actually coming up with this beat when he was telling the story to his daughter, and it's just really, really just a fun book. Speaking of jazz, Klezmer by Kyra Tice is just a joyous and fantastic and wonderful book about klezmer music. It is from a great publisher named Carben Publishing, which specializes in Jewish books written and created by Jewish picture book creators, and usually on about Jewish topics. This book is about the traditions of klezmer music and how forward-thinking klezmer music is, how it mixes traditions of the past and mixing in new sounds of the present. A girl goes to visit her family on New York's East Side, and they all have instruments and they all start playing. What I love about this book, the illustrations are phenomenal. She mixes in, if I can find that, sort of mixes in photographs, like archival photographs from like Jewish history. And like, for example, like, or like right there, you see like in the middle of her drawing, she puts like a photograph of someone celebrating at like possibly a wedding, possibly just a party, a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, you know. But klezmer is just, the language in this book is really great. It's really fun. It's really witty, and it's just a joy. Another noisy picture book, Everybody in the Red Brick Building by Ann Winter, illustrated by the phenomenal Oge Mora. This is a great book for loud story times. Basically what happens is it's the middle of the night and there's a big noise, a baby crying, that wakes up the parrot in the next room, and the parrot wakes up the people in that room, and then it wakes up the boys who start having like a flashlight fight, rockets start going off, car alarms start going off, cats are jumping, going, ow, you know, and the noises the noises repeat from page to page. So there's this great accumulation in the book of sounds. So you can have the kids you're reading to can make the sounds with you. And then it all reaches a crescendo. Then we kind of go backwards through the sounds and everybody starts calming down. The cat starts calming down. The person with a rocket starts calming down. You know, the kids with a flashlight start calming down. The parrot calms down. And the baby calms down in a beautiful ending to a parent's heartbeat. So there's just this great like you can make it rollicking and fun, and then you bring it backwards. And this, I would say, actually ages 2 and up. I would think that you could even do this with younger. Speaking of ages 2 and up, and even maybe going down to 1, the next 2 books, I Like Trains by Daisy Hurst. This book is very, very simple, seemingly, and yet it's just a joy. It's about a dog who, guess what, spoiler alert, likes trains. And throughout the book, you find out why the dog likes trains. And what's excellent about this book is this is a great Zoom storytime book. Throughout the past year, I'm sure many of you were looking for books to do in Zoom story times. Maybe you had young relatives you wanted to read to over Zoom. This book is just great because of the big illustrations, the big font. I'm getting older. I need bifocals, I think. I mean, I have to take my glasses off when I'm reading books now, it seems. But like this one, no problem at all. I see it like we buy 2 tickets and find the right platform. The kid takes a journey, the dog takes a journey to see grandma, and guess what? Spoiler alert, what does grandma like? Grandma likes trains too. It's just incredible. So this book is it's just very simple on some levels, but I just think that this past year, this book really helped me with Zoom story times, and also in person. I've been kind of doing more in person things. Really little kids love this book. Another book that really young kids will like is this book is called A House. It doesn't have the name of the book on the cover. We know it's a house. And it's by the legendary Kevin Henkes. This book is also very, like, it just looks really, really simple. But then Kevin starts doing things, like he starts asking the kids questions. Like he says, like, here's the picture of the house, and there's the sun. And for little kids, I did this with 2-year-olds a couple weeks ago, and 3-year-olds, they really get into it. Where is the sun? And the kids are like, up in the sky. I go, is it up? Yes, it's up in the sky. Where are the birds? And they go, oh, they're are all of them flying? No, 2 are sitting on the roof, So he takes this, he asks about shapes in it, counting, and all kinds of, like, he asks questions that they'll understand. There's surprises. It goes through the seasons in the book. And then there's a surprise at the end that might remind people of his other book, Waiting, which is a great Caldecott honor book, where there are like toys involved. This past year, I've noticed there are a lot of books about houses and homes. Kirkus wrote about it. Kirkus, which is a great review journal. There were a lot of books about being inside and being in houses. And so the next couple of books are about that. Inside Cat by Brendan Wenzel. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a Brendan Wenzel fanboy. Love his books. He's really great. Inside Cat is his strangest and trippiest book yet. It's about a cat who lives inside the house. And throughout the book, the cat is looking out windows. And the windows are different shapes. The cat starts seeing things out the windows. First, they look normal. First, they look okay, like, oh, okay, And then all of a sudden, they get more and more outlandish and strange. And then inside the cat, we start going inside the cat's mind, and the cat is very imaginative and very odd. And things become more and more like surrealistic and strange. Pizza Rat, if you know Pizza Rat from New York City a few years ago, Pizza Rat makes an appearance in this book. Pizza Rat gets giant, more giant, larger and larger, and kind of wild. And you start kind of getting into the cat's imagination. Then there's this hilarious joke at the end where we see the shape of the apartment building the cat lives in. But basically, and also the shape of New York City, there's a surprise. But you can kind of see that what I love about Brendan's work is he's just very experimental. He's always trying new things. This book, I could see kind of maybe people going, oh, I don't know if I love this. But after a while, when you look at it, go, oh, wow, there's all these details in here. The cat is like a squiggle. The stuff outside is more realistic, if you will. It's a fascinating book. And Brendan is always experimenting with different materials, and it's just thrilling to watch. The next book is a little more straightforward. Time for Bed, Old House is by Janet Costa Bates and illustrated by the great A.G. Ford. Basically, this is a book, this could go back to the first few books I talked about. it's about firsts. And in this book, there's a little boy, it's his first time away from home. He goes to visit grandpa, and the house is kind of noisy when he gets there. And the noises he gets a little bit like, oh, I don't know about these noises. This is a little afraid. Grandpa calms him down. And what they do is Grandpa walks him around the house to show him what's making the noises. And then at the end, in a lovely twist, Grandpa falls asleep, and the boy goes around saying goodnight to everything in the house. So he is no longer afraid. I love the expressions on A.G. Ford's characters' faces. I love the way the gentleness and warmth of the illustration, but he also makes it slightly like there's shadows on the wall. And meanwhile, Janet's text is just really comforting and really like very kid friendly and really like written with an understanding about children. So the next few books, this leads me into family. Lots of books about family this past year that were really, really striking. Dad Bakes is a really interesting book. It's by Katie Yamasaki. She's a muralist, excuse me. And this book is seemingly about a simple relationship between a girl and her father. Her father wakes up really early every morning to go bake bread at this bakery. And when he comes home, he's tired, he sleeps. And then when he wakes up, he and the daughter make bread together. What I love about this book is it's a simple text, very like, oh, here go my glasses, bifocals. He scoops, he kneads, he rolls, dough rises. But you can ask kids throughout the book, like more questions about the book. You can do what we call like dialogic reading. And there are passages where she's waiting for her dad to wake up, and you can ask the kids, what's she doing now? She's standing on her head. What's she doing now? She's eating cereal. What's on the cereal box? It's a panda bear. You can kind of like involve them in the story in different ways. I love the father-daughter connection. In the afterword, what makes this book really interesting is that Katie wrote this book in honor of programs that help formerly, like people who were in prison, like they come out of prison and they work, there are like programs around the country where people work in bakeries. And she talks, for example, about Detroit's On the Rise bakery. So it's about that program. And she's a muralist who went around and she worked in like various correctional facilities around the country. And so she was kind of inspired by this and writing about the impact, like when a parent comes out and and this connection between parent and child, and kind of making up for lost time, and bonding over baking. So for younger children, like you don't have to read that part to them, but you can talk about it, of course. For older kids, you can definitely talk about it, and it's just a story that works on so many different levels. The next book is I Sang You Down from the Stars. This is illustrated by Michaela Goad. She received the Caldecott Award last year for the amazing We Are Water Protectors. This is written by Tasha Spillett-Sumner. And this, I'm going to read just like what she says this book is about. This is about how many Indigenous peoples globally have this tradition that babies choose their parents. And it's about the mindful preparation that is involved in getting ready to welcome a baby into a family and community. So this mom throughout the book is collecting, going out in nature, collecting things for her baby. And when the baby is born, basically there's this connection, how the baby chose them, chose her, chose this family. And she has this gift for them, for the baby. And just these beautiful images of kind of flowing, kind of like what I love about Michaela's work is it's almost like glides across the pages like it's like water. And she loves nature and stars and natural surroundings. The language is just absolutely beautiful. I love this image of the baby opening their eyes, and I just love how the language and the art come together to create this very soothing story about a new addition to the family. The next book is going to take us into the cosmos. Stella's Stellar Hair is just one of the funniest, wonderful, great books of the year. It's by Yesenia Moises, and she wrote this book. This is a book about a girl who lives out. She lives out in outer space, in the stars. She wakes up and there's a big festival coming up, and she's not happy about her hair. And so she goes from planet to planet, and she has aunties who live on every planet. There's an auntie on Mercury, auntie on Venus, auntie on Mars, and they suggest hairstyles for her. And none of them kind of work. This is Uranus. These are the ants. And they twist and turn and they do all these things with her hair. And she's not happy. And she learns at the end to just be herself, to just let her hair be the way it is. I love the fact that in this book, there are planet facts at the end. So all the hairstyles actually go along with the planet fact. So it's just really kind of a cool book. It's very bright, very vibrant, very colorful, and very joyous. And that's Stellar Hair. Coming Back Down to Earth is another book about family and about community. And the next few books are very personal books. Books where actually, in this case, the author, Tricia Alam Walker, and the illustrator, the great Equa Holmes, who's a two-time Coretta Scott King recipient and a Caldecott Honor recipient. Dream Street is about a Black community where everybody basically has a dream and has a talent, has aspirations, and basically each page is about somebody who lives on the street and about what makes them special, about what makes them truly, like just a great person. And these are, this is Tricia and this is Equa. They put themselves in the book as young children, and you see Tricia writing and you see Equa drawing. So the book is about their childhood friendship and about the street they lived on. I have to give this book an extra shout out because there's a boy who wants to be a librarian, and he is told that yes, boys can be librarians. So let's give a huge round of applause to Dream Street for that. And also just the collage, and Equa's collages, her work in this book, just amazing. Just these beautiful, beautiful images throughout the book. And the writing is just beautiful and very personal. On a more heartbreaking note, Wishes. This is set in 1980. It starts off in Vietnam. And as you know, at that time, and things going on now throughout the world, these are about the Vietnamese boat people, and they are going from Vietnam to Hong Kong. And Scholastic, I went to a Scholastic event, publisher pitch, and they talked about this book, and I just saw the images, and I'm like, oh my, this book is just incredible. It's about a family preparing to leave, to get on the boat, and the words are very, very simple. And basically it's inanimate objects, like the bag wished it was deeper. So you see these kind of like these images in the book that are very, very like so much going on, and then the words are very just kind of cut right to what's going on. And then these images of them on the boat, it does not hide. This is probably it's interesting because probably you could do it with younger kids, but probably for older kids. But I would say, it just gets into it doesn't sugarcoat. It just gets right into the perilous nature of what they had to go through. This is based on experiences of the author, and there is an afterword talking about it. So Wishes is just a really powerful book. These are 4 more books where they're inspired. They're very kind of on the serious side. And some of them are definitely for older readers. Unspeakable definitely is probably for like older readers. The publisher says ages 8 and up. And I would probably agree. I mean, maybe some 7-year-olds. But these are family stories. From the Top of the Trees, Keo Kalia Yang talks about living in a refugee camp in Thailand. She's Hmong, Hmong, and she's living in a refugee camp. And it's about how she's confined, she can't get out. And her father, she wonders about the trees. And so her father takes her and they go all the way up the trees to look what's over the wall. And there's an actual family photograph in this book where that inspired, that's from her childhood, where she, showed that basically, yes, she did do this with her dad. It's just a very powerful, and if you haven't had a chance to hear Ko Kalia Yang speak, always have a box of tissues nearby because she just tells stories that really get to you. She's very, very powerful. Rachel Awada's illustrations are amazing too. On the trap line is by David A. Robertson, and it's illustrated by the great Julie Flett. This is in Canada, and basically it's about David A. Robinson's dad took him to the trap line, which is a Smoky Cree place where the indigenous people, the Cree people, used to hunt and fish. It's where they used to live. And you have to take like a plane to get there. It's like a long trip. So David felt inspired by this in honor of his father and wrote on the trap line. And in this book, it's a child and a grandfather who go, and they go and they look at the trap line and they talk about the past, like what used to happen there. And it's just a really powerful book. Unspeakable, the Tulsa Race Massacre. This was the 100th anniversary, of course, of the Tulsa Race Massacre. There was a section in Tulsa with Black-owned businesses. Black business owners were living very productive lives, and racism, this racist incident caused white people to go in and do this horrible crime against the Black people who lived there. Carol Boston Weatherford's words, they do not hide, they do not sugarcoat anything. The late Floyd Cooper, this was dedicated to his grandfather who lived in Tulsa at the time. And this was a very personal story for him. He passed away this year, and this was a book that he says in the afterword that he really wanted to create. Watercrest by Andrea Wang, illustrated by Jason Chen. This is about Andrea, her family, and it's about a girl who is kind of ashamed of, she's poor, like her family. I mean, she's not, maybe not poor. She's kind of like her family is financially strapped, and they have to go and they pick up things that like make chairs that people have thrown out. They're taking a family drive, and the family sees watercress. The mother sees watercress off to the side, and they go to pick watercress. And the daughter is so mortified and ashamed about what's going on. And she learns a sad truth about her family, and learns to maybe realize that she should not be as ashamed of her family. It's a very powerful book. All right, so these are great family stories, probably for older readers. And then Someone Builds the Dream. This kind of, this book, I'm kind of in this order because the writer and the illustrator put themselves in this book. So it's kind of interesting, like Dream Street, these two pop up in the book. I love Someone Builds the Dream because it's all about laborers and about people who work really hard on projects like windmills and books and houses. It talks about how, somebody like an architect will get the glory, come up with the blueprints, but it's the people who work really hard, who sweat, who put the dream together, who make it. And what I love about this book is you can see the muscles, you can see the sweat. You have men and women working on these various projects, people from all different backgrounds and cultures. And it's just to make these things come together. And it's a very meta book because at the end we see Lauren Long puts this great illustration of himself and Lisa of creating the book. And then you see a librarian reading the book to a group of children. So I just love how the meta quality of this book, and it's a shout out to workers. And Lauren Long, his artwork is dedicated to back at, like, if you ever seen the work from the 1930s, the WPA artist, that's what his work is a tribute to, and you can really kind of see it if you've ever seen those murals. Talking of collaborations, getting into collaborations that involve family. The Fan Brothers, It Fell from the Sky. Oh, I made the multiple It Fell from the Sky in this slide. That actually looks really cool. That's not what the cover really looks like. It actually just looks like one It Fell from the Sky. It Fell from the Sky is a really interesting satirical story about an insect community. They see a marble that is on the ground and they don't know what it is. And they come up with different, they think one bug thinks it's this, another bug thinks it's this. One of the bugs sees it as a business opportunity to make money and to exploit the curiosity of the other bugs, and kind of gets in trouble doing it. I really love the Fan Brothers work. They're just, the way they use color in very minimal ways, the way the images just sort of pop off the pages still, they're just such great. They're brothers, and they've been working together on a lot of books. And going to another collaboration between people who live in the same household, if you will. Matt Ringler does not live with Raoul III and Elaine Bay, but Raoul III and Elaine Bay are, I believe, married or are partners. And Raoul and Elaine work on books together. If you know anything about picture books, what's interesting is that authors and illustrators often do not even meet. Like a lot of times they do not talk during the artistic process at all. They're not allowed to in some cases. I happen to know because we hosted Jarrett Dapier and Andrea Sarumi earlier this year, that they didn't actually start really talking until after the book was made and created. Raoul and Elaine, they do collaborate. Stroller Coaster is just a great book by Matt Ringler, and it's about his experiences as a dad, about what happens when his little kids started throwing temper tantrums. He would put them in the stroller and they would take a beautiful ride around the community. And what I love about Stroller Coaster is that it is kind of written as if they're going on a roller coaster. The parent is strapping the child in and off they go. And they go throughout the community. And I love Raoul III and Elaine Bay's work because it's a lot like underground comics from the 70s and filled with details, really interesting comical moments. And it becomes like I said, like a roller coaster. Like they go up, they go down. And I just love this image of the girl just really loving this moment, going through, and she's calmed down by the end, the temper tantrum's over, and they fall asleep. And I just, what's also great about this book is every time I see it, I start singing Stroller Coaster of Love. If you know Roller Coaster of Love, now you'll always sing Stroller Coaster of Love when you see this book. So Matt Ringler writes really fun text. Raoul III does the illustration. Elaine Bay does the colors. Elaine Bay does these amazing, vibrant colors. This book, as you can see, it's like graffiti colors, just amazing. And more fun with Raoul and Elaine. I'm coming off completely as a fanboy of them, and I totally am. Raoul III has said that he always wanted to create his own world, and he has done that with the Vamos books. If you've seen Vamos, Let's Eat, and Vamos, Let's Go to the Market. Now there's a new one called Vamos, Let's Cross the Bridge, which shows what happens when they get stuck on a bridge between a country. It's kind of like the United States and Mexico, but it's this comical world that's animal packed. And basically what happens when they get caught on the bridge is entertainment, food is handed out, but it's just very funny. The Vamos series led to El Toro and Friends, and they're wrestlers. And they basically have these easy reader adventures. And I want to thank Raoul III and Elaine Bay for these easy readers, because they mix in Spanish and English, and we need more of that. And it's just really fun. And these wrestlers have to work together to solve problems, like in tag team. In training day, the bull doesn't really want to train, and so it's up to the coach to get him to start wrestling. It's just, they're just fun books. And what do I have next here? Okay, Banksy graffitied walls and wasn't sorry. I have it in this order because of Raoul III and Elaine Bay. They remind me of street art. Banksy, of course, is like the ultimate street artist. This is a book that kind of looks at the mystery of Banksy, and I like it because it doesn't really, it speculates, but it just talks about the different theories about who Banksy is. It talks about what Banksy has done. And what's hilarious about this book is, in pure Banksy spirit, it is missing from our library. So we have to reorder copies. So I'm kind of thinking that Banksy may have come in to borrow the book without telling us, and maybe it'll come back. And I want to give a shout out to two more Evanston-based talents. Diana Sadiqa illustrated the wonderful nature book, Dear Tree Frog, with poems by Joyce Seidman, or Sidman, excuse me. And basically it's about frogs and about nature, and just, I love Diana's work so much. If you ever go over to Evanston's children's bookstore, Booked, Diana created artwork on the little door. There's a door that little kids can go through. She's just wonderful. And we had her as a guest speaker a few years ago, and she's just great. I love her art in this book. I also have to give a shout out to Secret Agent Guy, which is written by Kira Bigwood, and it's illustrated by Celia Krempian. Kira did a program with Evanston this past year outside. Secret Agent Guy is a fun, fast-paced book about a kid, as you guessed it, believes they are a secret agent. And I love the shoes. They are the most awesome shoes of the year. And then there's a little twist at the end that I won't spoil, that just kind of really makes the book. So just a lot of fun. And speaking of local authors, oh my word, I have to give a shout out. Betsy does not know I'm doing this. Betsy Bird, who's going to be our next speaker, of course, wrote a middle grade chapter book called Long Road to the Circus with art from the great David Small. Yesterday, we found out that Betsy made the New York Times Best Books of the Year list. And so a big round of applause for Betsy. If you haven't read Long Road to the Circus, it's just a wonderful historical book about a girl who meets some circus folk and finds herself kind of interested in ostriches. And I'm not going to spoil anything about it. But again, Betsy did not know I was doing this. So surprise, Betsy. And now on that note, I want to thank everybody for listening to my part of it. And Betsy has a lot more. I want to let you know that after this presentation, I will be sending out an email with a list to the online book list that I created. And also there'll be like a very simple list of the titles we presented. And also there'll be a link to sign up for an author program we have next Saturday at 4 p.m. CST for Zetta Elliott. And so look out for that email right after our presentation. So thank you again. Thank you everyone for listening. I appreciate it so much. And here comes Betsy, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. Let me see here. I have great fun with trying to pin myself. Also, I'm having a lot of fun in getting kicked out of this. So yeah, so it's super fun today, super fun. Okay. So hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm just trying to figure out the pin situation. I can't figure it out. It's all good.
I think I added you as a pin. So.
Okay, cool. As long as I'm showing up somewhere, that's all I care. So yes, I'm going to do the second part of the presentation. And I guess, Brian, should I share my screen? I guess I should share my screen in the fun way that the kids do these days. So let me do that thing. I believe.
I can share my screen. I'm so sorry. I forgot I was doing that.
That's okay. You can do it. Why don't you share your screen? Because it's just better.
I am so sorry. Oh my gosh.
It's cool. You do that thing.
Yay! All right. Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Know her.
It's a well-oiled machine.
Well, and I just want to say that Brian is so good at this. I could just listen to him talk about picture books all day. But we're going to begin with my first book, ding! A book that you probably haven't heard of unless you're from Australia. And that is Nobody Owns the Moon. This book came out 10 years ago. It's by Toby Riddle. And it is so delightful. And to my shock and horror, we haven't really paid much attention to it for whatever reason, but it's finally here thanks to Burbay Publishing. This is a story about how in the city, some animals adapt really well and some don't. Foxes adapt really well. And in fact, our fox hero in this story does very well for himself. They're quick-witted. They can have a variety of foods. As you can see, he's got his own place. He holds down a job. He has a one-room apartment in the busy part of town. Other animals don't adapt as well. And his friend Humphrey, who's a donkey, he doesn't adapt as well, and it's so beautiful how it's worded. It says Humphrey doesn't always have a fixed address, can't hold a job for all that long. And then one day, Humphrey just finds a little blue envelope and he was going to eat it. But Clyde points out it's tickets to see a brand new show, basically on Broadway. They go to see it. It's fantastic. It comes with free hors d'oeuvres beforehand. Then you get a free slice of cake afterwards. It's a beautiful show. They laugh at all the right parts. And as they're just walking away, they just declare that this is our city. And it's such a lovely story. It's sweet, but kind of meaningful. It's an amazing array of like photography mixed with illustration. I'm just such a huge fan. I discovered it late this year. I would like everyone to discover it. So Nobody Owns the Moon. Next slide. The capybaras. So this is essentially an anti-Trump book, though it doesn't really look it when you first get it. It's about immigration. You've got these capybaras. They're perfectly happy where they live. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You've got these chickens. They're owned by a bunch of guys with red baseball caps. And these chickens come in. No, these capybaras come in. The capybaras are very different. The chickens aren't exactly sure what they think about them. They're a little weird, but things progress, they become friends, and the capybaras help the chickens escape from the guys with the red caps. And it is a very subtle, it's a Spanish import. If you're an adult, you can kind of see what it's doing. If you're a kid, it's about capybaras and chickens. And quite frankly, what's not to love about capybaras and chickens? I mean, look at those guys. If you haven't loved a capybara before, this is the book that is going to make you love them. Next slide. I'm going kind of fast because, our time is limited. So Little Witch Hazel's another one that I discovered late in the year. This is by Phoebe Wall. Now, these first two books that I did are imports. This book feels like an import, but is not an import at all. Phoebe Wall has this fabulous style. It looks like she's doing woodcuts or something. It's all digital. It's all digital these days, but it's so beautiful you wouldn't necessarily know that. It goes through 4 seasons and you just see one little adventure with Hazel in each one. I don't know why they call her a witch. She doesn't really use any magic at any point. She's just sort of living her life, boom, boom, in the forest. And, and the first one's winter and the second one's, spring, third one's summer. What's so cool about this is that it looks very classic, right? It looks like something you would have had on your shelf in the 1970s, 1960s, 1950s even. But it's very subtle because if you look at who she interacts with, particularly in the summer story, you've got fairies that are breastfeeding. You've got fairies with beards and dresses. You've got, different, fairies in relationships, same-sex fairies. It's fairies who are not all white. You've got a lot of different things going on here, but it's very subtle. It's something that you notice, it is there, and it just shows that you can create something that looks like so classic, but at the same time have contemporary mores and values that you imbue your book with. And besides that, it's just charming writing and beautiful art. I gotta say, we've hit this moment where the digital art has gotten really good. The technology has gotten to the point where digital is no longer that thing where we kind of like poo-poo it, like, well, it's not quite as good. It is excellent, I am happy to say. Next slide. Ship in a Bottle was a surprise, I have to say. We discovered it kind of by accident at the library and liked it so much that I believe it's on our 101 Great Books for Kids list. It's very simple. You have a lot of picture books that get very flashy and they're kind of like, pay attention to me, I've got glitter. This is not that. This is a book about a little mouse who decides to go on an adventure. What I like about this book, aside from just the writing, the beautiful watercolors, I really enjoy the fact that it is very subtle with, again, its messaging. In it the little mouse meets squirrels and rabbits who are not very nice. And you're like, wow, squirrels and rabbits are not nice. Then later it meets squirrels and rabbits that are perfectly nice. And you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be assuming so much about these squirrels and rabbits over there. Again, it's a very young story. It's a very quiet but fun little adventure. It's good for the younger kids. It's a gentle book, but there is some conflict. Sometimes you get the gentle books where there's no conflict whatsoever. And you're like, why am I even reading this? This is not that book. The storytelling is very careful. The wordplay is very careful. Big fan of this one. Next slide. Oh, so Your Mama. Okay, this is by Nonika Ramos. This book is so fun because basically it almost feels like a challenge that she made for herself. Like, can I take the Your Mama jokes and can I turn them into an entire picture book? But when it comes to like, what are the Your Mama quote unquote insults? Well, they're not. They're all compliments. So they've sort of been flipped on their head. So like, Your Mama's so sweet. She could be a bakery. And then it shows her like baking. She is strong. I love your mom is a brainiac, better than any app. And she's a beautiful mama, which I kind of love. I mean, this is like a strong, beautiful mama who is, also there is a Your Mama's so crazy part, but that's because her family is driving her freaking crazy. Parents are going to identify with this mama. Kids are going to like it because the mama's essentially like a superhero on some level. And the art by Jacqueline Alcantara is beautiful and fun. It's a fun read aloud. Like you could read this aloud in front of a good group and you could have so much fun with it. And I always like to highlight the read alouds because not every single picture book in the world reads aloud to a group particularly well, but this one particularly does. Next slide. All right, so we're going to sort of switch it all around here. So we were doing some like really upbeat, fun, light ones. Let's take it down a notch. This year is being particularly good when it comes to serious topics handled by picture books. Now, this is part of the 1619 project. This may sound familiar to you since the 1619 project's being banned left and right all around the country right now. This is a picture book that, if my name's Bets, I'm a betting woman. And when it comes to the Caldecott, I like to bet. It's really going to come down, as far as I can tell, between Floyd Cooper for Unspeakable and this book. Because this book's kind of doing, remember when Crown came out? Crown was very clever when it came out and it won 2 billion awards because it did something very clever. It got a professional new painter to do the art. Now that doesn't always work out. A lot of time painters don't really understand how to transition to the picture book form. Nicholas Smith, for some reason, knows exactly how to transition to the form. It's beautifully rendered story. It begins with a kid who's given, she's a Black girl. She's given this assignment in class. We may all remember it, the trace your roots. And she's like, well, I can only trace them like 3 generations. And all these other people are like, people came out of the Mayflower. And then it goes back, but it doesn't go back to the beginning of slavery in America. No. It goes back to a lot of the rich cultures of West Africa. And it just has a great deal of joy. And then, then it does introduce the Middle Passage and it introduces slavery, but it still doesn't lose that. I mean, it gets very dark, but then that joy comes back and it's gorgeously illustrated. You can't really see it in the little teeny tiny picture right here, but if you look through it, the end papers alone are worth a Caldecott. You have to check this out. Oh, I should say, Nicole Hannah-Jones is with the 1619 project, but it was very, very clever of her to get Renee Watson involved because Renee Watson's an excellent author for kids. She knows exactly how this should work. It's poetry. This is poetry on the page. This is the book you cannot miss. Next slide. Another really serious topic. So we all know Juji Morales. She did Dreamers. She's been working for years. And what I love about her is that she mixes different styles. She can do models. She can do paper cuts. She can do digital, as is seen in this book, which looks like mixed media, but is in fact digital. She even like took the skin tones of a baby to use for the kids in this book. It seems at the beginning like a very innocuous book. It's like, oh, it sounds like you are special, like that kind of book. And then it completely flips itself on the head. It's showing the wall, the border wall. It shows the children at the border wall. It shows the wildlife. There's an environmental aspect to this, the wildlife that can't move across their usual paths because there's a wall in the way. It is beautifully rendered, very gentle, but it's got very serious themes at the same time. This is a difficult book to write, and I think she did a stand-up stellar job. Next slide. I love photography. I'm a photography nut. I think photography is like the best ever. This is the best photography book of the year, no question. What it is it's a beautifully written story about, it's a how-to book. You know how the kids are always like, we need a how-to book. This is how to find a fox. It is the different steps you should take in order to find a fox. It shows their tracks. It shows all this amazing photography of foxes. And look at that cover. Look at that cover. How can you look at that little fox in the eye and not want to see this book? It is just amazing landscape shots and then close-ups of cubs, and it is great. If unfortunately, the photographer doesn't live in America. Otherwise, I'd be like putting down money on whether or not a book of photography could win a Caldecott. Maybe not this year. Next slide. Speaking of photography, see how I paired them together there? So this is The Me I Choose to Be. It is by our local Chicago author, Natasha Tarpley. But if this is photography done amazingly. So the photographers, Regis and Karen Bethencourt, they did a book for adults that came out at the end of last year. And I remember seeing it and being like, what's the book? This is amazing. And then they had this book on the horizon for 2021. I was so happy. It is one of those, pride books. It's, be proud of yourself. This is the you choose to be. But these kids are getting to live the fantasies of every child in the world. I mean, it is, if we're talking about, what I really would like is a Afrofuturistic picture book, this would be the book you would hand them. The creation of the photography, there was a wonderful podcast I was listening to, was talking about the history of photography and how poorly it's treated Black skin, how everything is sort of made to adapt to white skin. These guys know how to photograph Black skin. It is wonderful. It is absolutely gorgeous, jaw-dropping. You gotta see it. Next slide. There's another import. This one's from South Korea, and we got 2 books by Hannah Bach this year. This is my favorite. Though I do love Moon Pops. Nothing against Moon Pops. Moon Pops, if it had just been Moon Pops, I would have been Moon Pops all the way. But Magic Candies is so weird. It's done with models. This kid goes to the store and he gets what looks like a bunch of marbles, but they're candies. Each candy allows the kid to hear something speak. Sometimes it's the dog. Sometimes it's the couch that has one of those like remote controls like wedged into it. And it's really painful. Sometimes it's his dad has this amazing like page of just like stuff he's just telling him to do. And it looks like he's just haranguing him. When he takes the candy, he can just hear coming from his dad, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. And that's what that actually means. He can hear what the leaves are saying as they fall. It is so nice. And when he gets to the clear candy, that's when the book just completely just mwah, beautiful. Next slide. Oh, okay. So we're doing 2 subway books here. I lived in New York for 11 years. I know the subway system very well, and these books know the subway system too. This is a Christian Robinson, Matt de la Pena combination. You may remember them from Last Stop on Market Street, kind of one in Newbury. I like this book more, to be perfectly frank. Like that book, fine. It's okay. This book's great. This is about Milo. He likes to sketch and draw and imagine. He's on his trip somewhere with his sister. He's imagining the lives of the people around him. And then there is this shift that happens where he realizes he's making assumptions about people because they might be making assumptions about him. And then you see the assumptions that he had before flipped, so that you can see another way of looking at like who this person is, where they might be going. It's so clever. Hat tip to Matt De La Pena. The man knows how to write. And Christian Robinson this is fantastic. I know we all love his Nina. It's probably the one that's going to get the awards, but I would love it if this book got a little attention as well. Next slide. Oh, this is fantastic. Important. So I am the Subway riders, and it shows that thing. If you've been on the subway, someone gets on, someone gets off, someone gets on, someone gets on, and their stories, the stories of the people who are just spending this minute amount of time in one another's presence, but you're getting their stories very briefly as they come and go. And you get look at the light on that cover. Okay, so that is like mid-afternoon light coming slanting in through one of the windows. The art in this book is magnificent. It's just fantastic how it renders that moment where you are in the presence of another person for just that small amount of time, and then poof, they're gone. And they're living their lives, and you will never know how that story ends. That's what this book captures. Next slide. See, this book had like 500 blurbs from other authors on the back, which doesn't really mean anything. Could be Tom Gall's just a super nice guy. We don't know. But when you read this, you realize this man knows fairy tales. He knows them real well. I cannot believe this is his picture book debut, because this book is wonderfully rendered. About a king and a queen who wish they had children. So they both go their separate ways. One goes to like a witch in the woods, and one goes to like the royal, sorcerer. And they end up with two children, a little wooden robot and a log princess who she occasionally turns into a log. This can be problematic, and it is just charming, fun. It has little hints of other adventures that happen in between the big adventure that you are watching. Tom Gall does a lot of New Yorker covers. You've probably seen his comics around. He's got kind of an XKCD kind of style. This book is written really well, and then he has illustrated it with his own inimitable style. I love it. Next slide. I know we're going over time. I'm trying to shoot through them here. I mean, someone on our committee once said, do we really need another John Klassen book on our list, our 100 great books for kids list? And the problem is it's his best book, so we kind of do. This book is, again, we have returned to Animals with Hats. It's his go-to, and he's really good at it. This book is split into 4 separate chapters. And what's so cool about these 4 separate chapters is that it's just beautifully rendered. It's strange, it's weird, and it's funny. So what happens is you have these 2 characters, and then there's a 3rd character, a snake. They're all wearing what appear to be like the tiniest bowler hats in the world. And you get these weird dream sequences, and then you have Looming Dread, the picture book. Who doesn't love a little Looming Dread? It has a very Warner Brothers, but subtle Warner Brothers style. If you gave Xanax to the Roadrunner and Coyote cartoons, this is what you would get. His timing is exquisite, and it's funny, very funny. My favorite Klassen. Next slide. Okay, apparently illustrated by none other than Juji Morales' sister. I did not know this. I've read a lot of Pura Belle Prey picture book biographies, all right? And they always get something wrong. One thing they usually get wrong is what the inside of a library looks like in New York City. They always show these vast, huge spaces. I'm like, you ever been to New York Public Library? These are tiny spaces. This book gets everything right. Almost sort of gets the puppets right. The puppets are always the one thing where it's come on, guys. But the puppets are actually pretty close here to what the actual ones are, which you can see on display at NYPL anytime. There's a story of Pura Belle Prey, but what's so cool about it is it's not just that she became a librarian in New York City, and that's a cool story, but it also shows how she saw there was a gap in the marketplace for the stories that she would tell and was told as a kid, and how she created those stories. And can I just say, why are her books out of print? We've got millions of her books that are great and well written. And why are we not seeing them reprinted to this day? Maybe with some of the cool illustrators that we kind of love. Just saying, it's $1 million idea. We got a whole award named after her. People would buy them. Just saying. Next slide. I love this book. Okay, this is a crazy book. So Sarah has never made a book on her own before. She's illustrated other people's books. She's the greatest, I was gonna say caricaturist, but that's not really it. She can replicate anyone's face like that. She's good at it. And boy, does she put it to work. So you see a lot of like children's books and they've got like images of famous women you should know. And they're usually collected biographies. And the kids look and they go like, oh, this book is not that. It has 1 million women in this book. And they are listed on the publication page, but it is also about the Rosie the Riveter character. So it's like a biography of a fictional character showing how she was created, how she was used, and then what her legacy is, both before and after her creation. It's very clever and it works in really well. And there's so many like continual like links between different pages. There's a woman who wears red that if you follow her path and her journey and her jobs basically is fascinating to watch. There's this great page where like you can see that polka dot like red and white pattern on a bunch of different women on different things that they're wearing. It's very cool. You got to check it out. Next page. And this is a book you should not miss. I mean, again, Melissa Sweet's gotten her fair share of awards in her day. I'm not thinking of that many books that highlight a person with Down syndrome that isn't just like, and you know, they had a job. She has a job. So this is by her sister. So Judith Scott was an artist that has work in museums all around the world. And this is the incredibly tragic story of her life, but also very triumphant because she came to start to make art, I think in her 40s, and she just blossomed from there. And if any illustrator can illustrate what this art looks like, it is Melissa Sweet, who does a stand-up, bang-up job. But the writing by her sister and by Bree Spangler is really good. Shows a lot of what happened with people who were differently abled in the past, and it was not good usually. And it shows like just this woman's growth as an artist, which is not something that we see a lot. This book has not gotten a ton of attention, which I find very strange because it is beautiful. It is fantastically written and more people should know about it. Next slide. Is that the last one? Let me see.
I think that's the last one.
I think that's the last one. There we go. We're going to end on that. All right.
All right. Wow. That was excellent. That was so cool.
That was
I love so many of those books that you talked about. They're like, I have to say when we kind of like always kind of go, oh, which books do we want to talk about? And Betsy was like, oh, this one, you know, it was, and she left a lot for me too, but it was like, oh man. But yeah, it's so thrilling to go through all those books again. And thank you again, everyone, for being here this morning and for being part of this. It means so much to us that you made time out during a busy time of year on a Saturday morning to be part of this. And thanks again to Betsy again, and congratulations again to Betsy for the New York Times shout out. It was just, yeah, hey, there it is.
I don't even know why it's here.
I didn't see that at all. And thank you again, everyone. There will be an email out with links and things like that, and we appreciate it again for being here, for you being here. Thank you so much. Give yourselves a huge round of applause. Yeah.